Okay, let's dive in. You know Genesis 3.16, that verse, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows that one. And it's usually interpreted in a very specific, often quite limiting way
Hmm.
for centuries, really.
Exactly. A pretty narrow reading, frankly, but what if? What if that verse holds something completely different, a different kind of power for, well, for you?
It is fascinating, isn't it? How that single passage became such a cornerstone for understanding male-female dynamics, shaping so much.
Right. But today, for this deep dive, we're exploring it through a very different lens. We're looking at Neville Goddard's take from his lecture, Your Husband.
Ah, Goddard. He always offers a unique perspective.
He really does. And the key, the absolute pivot point, comes from Isaiah 54.5. Your maker is your husband.
Your maker is your husband. That really changes the frame, doesn't it?
Completely. And Goddard argues this isn't just, nice poetry. He says it fundamentally reframes Genesis 3.16.
And not just the verse, but our whole connection to, well, the divine and our own creative power.
Exactly. And here's where it gets personal for everyone listening. Goddard suggests that forget physical gender for a moment. In this context, you are the woman from Genesis.
Okay, so we're all the woman in this symbolic sense.
That's his argument.
Yeah.
And your children, they aren't literal offspring, they're your ideas, the concepts born from your imagination.
Wow. So our minds, our imaginations, they're like wombs for ideas. And these ideas are our children.
That's the concept. It puts a lot of emphasis on our own, mental activity, our personal agency.
It certainly does. It suggests we're actively shaping things just through what we conceive in our minds.
Precisely. So our mission today in this deep dive is to really unpack this. Goddard's metaphorical view. What does it mean for your maker to be your husband?
And what are the implications for how we view our thoughts, our desires, the world around us even?
Let's start with the standard view of Genesis 3.16. Usually it's about the pain of childbirth, right? And male dominance.
That's the traditional interpretation, yes.
Yeah.
A consequence of the fall, focused on hardship and hierarchy.
But Goddard comes along and says, hold on, this is symbolic. It's a metaphor.
And he points us back to Isaiah. Your maker is your husband. The Lord Almighty is his name.
Yeah, and he stresses this isn't just for one group. It's universal for everyone. Male, female, it doesn't matter in this context.
We are all in this relationship with the wife. And this relationship holds until, as he puts it, the sleep of death is past.
Which basically reframes our whole identity relative to God, or the creative principle. Our imagination is the conceiving element.
The womb, yeah. Where these ideas come from.
And Goddard says something really striking here. He says, your husband, your maker, will sire every idea you fall in love with.
Every idea.
Every single one, no matter how terrible it might appear to be.
That's quite a statement. It implies a huge responsibility for where we place our focus, our emotional energy.
It really does. We're not just passive. We're actively choosing what to conceive through our affections, our beliefs.
So it's not just about wanting something. It's about truly falling in love with the idea, the state.
Exactly. And to show the power of this, he uses a very stark example, Hitler in the Third Reich.
Okay, that's definitely a jarring example. How does he use it?
He talks about women, perhaps happily married in their external lives, who became utterly captivated by the idea of a superior race, the Nazi ideology.
Right, so it's crucial to understand this isn't literal infidelity he's talking about.
No, not at all. It's metaphorical. He says they had, in a sense, an affair with Hitler in their dreams.
Not the man, Adolf Hitler, but the state he represented.
Precisely. The state, the ideology, the concept of racial superiority, they fell in love with that.
It's a powerful illustration of how an idea, a belief system, can consume someone's inner world.
Absolutely. And this union, this falling in love with a state, happens in what Goddard calls, poetically, soft Beulah's night.
Soft Beulah's night. So the realm of imagination,
Right.
the subconscious.
Yes, the place of subconscious acceptance, where we truly embrace an idea, maybe even without fully realizing it.
And interestingly, he notes the person whose image might appear in such a dreamlike Hitler in that example could be completely unaware.
Totally oblivious. They're just a symbol, a personification of the state that the dreamer has embraced.
Which leads to another critical point Goddard makes. You can't really kill an idea.
Right. He says once an idea is truly accepted, it's conceived. It goes out and replenishes the earth in a way.
So you can remove the person embodying the idea.
Like removing a leader, yeah. But the idea itself, it persists. It just waits for someone else to connect with it, to embody it again.
That has huge implications for, well, everything from social movements to personal habits. Just changing the surface doesn't eliminate the underlying pattern or belief.
And he connects these persistent, often negative, embraced ideas to false gods.
False gods, meaning limiting beliefs, negative assumptions we've accepted.
Exactly. Things we've given our creative power to that aren't our true husband, our maker. And devotion to these, he says, only multiplies our sorrow.
So the invitation then is for self-reflection.
Yes. Goddard urges you listening, to look honestly inside. Have you ever felt intensely drawn to a concept, an ideology, a state of being, even if it seemed out of character?
Have you had that kind of inner union with something or someone representing something other than your everyday commitments and your thoughts, your daydreams, your actual dream?
Because, he insists, the union isn't really with the person you might see in that dream or imagination.
It's with the state that person represents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because your maker is your husband who is playing the part of the person.
God is playing the part. That's profound.
Think about it. If you really dive deep into Goddard's work, you might even dream of uniting with him, with Neville.
But even then, Goddard would say.
It's not Neville the man, it's the state his teachings represent for you, the state of belief.
And ultimately, that union is really with God, your Father, your own core being, your wonderful I amness.
It all circles back to this idea of one source, God. The Bible speaks of one God, one cause.
And Goddard describes this source, God, as protein,
Meaning?
able to take on any shape, play any part, like an actor assuming endless roles. God is playing all the parts in the drama of life.
And animating each of us, who, in this framework, are all his wife.
So when we get fixated on something else, some other state, some false god,
We essentially turn away from our true source, our true husband, and that's where the sorrow comes in, bringing forth the children of these false unions.
he tells a story, doesn't he? About a dancer.
Yes, a woman who desperately craved the glamour and excitement of the theater world. She didn't really have the talent, but the desire was intense.
Okay.
So in her imagination, in her soft Beulah's night, she had these recurring affairs. Metaphorical ones.
With who?
Figures who embodied that glamour for her, like the Pope, the Prince of Wales, people representing grandeur, status.
Wow. And again, these actual people were completely unaware.
Totally. They were just masks, personifying the state she longed for.
And what happened to her in her life?
Well, Goddard says she ended up having a very difficult life, struggling with alcoholism. She wedded herself to a false god and greatly multiplied her sorrows.
A cautionary tale, then, about where we place our deepest desires and
Right.
affections.
Definitely. Her real longing was for her true husband, for that connection to source, but she sought it through these external, ultimately unfulfilling states.
This actually ties into how he reads 1 Timothy 2.15, doesn't it? About women being saved through childbearing.
Right. The Common Translation says, by the birth of children, plural. But Goddard points to the footnote in the Revised Standard Version, based on the Greek.
Which says, by the birth of the child, singular.
Exactly. So for Goddard, salvation isn't about having lots of ideas or children in the ordinary sense. It's about the one birth.
The birth of the child within, which represents.
Fully embracing and realizing the gospel story, the promise within yourself. That singular, transformative inner birth.
So back to dreams for a moment. If we have strange dreams, these unions, Goddard says, don't worry.
Pretty much. He says it's normal. If you resist the union in the dream, it just means the idea is foreign to you. You haven't accepted it.
But if you willingly participate, if you feel drawn to it and embrace it in the dream,
And you are accepting that state. And that acceptance paves the way for it to manifest in your outer world. It shows your desire aligns with that concept.
which brings us to the idea of the kingdom of God. Remember in Luke 9, Jesus asks his disciples, who do people say I am?
Yeah, and they give various answers. Then he asks them directly, but who do you say I am?
And Peter declares, you are the Christ of God.
A pivotal moment. But then Jesus tells them not to tell anyone yet. Why?
Because, Goddard explains, the common understanding of the Messiah, the Christ, was something external, a political or military leader who would arrive.
But Jesus's point and Goddard's emphasis is that Christ comes from within.
Yes. Goddard puts it powerfully. God became your very self that you may become God.
Wow. That's the core of it, really. God isn't just out there.
No. And this relates back to God playing all the parts. It allows us, through imagination and dreams, to experience all sorts of states. even appearing as animals sometimes, Goddard suggests.
It sounds like exploring different possibilities, different aspects of consciousness.
Exactly. And the ultimate goal of this whole cosmic play, for God, your true husband, to eventually leave all others and cleave to you, his wife, until you become one being.
A complete union, a merging of consciousness.
Goddard shares another story, a letter from a woman who had some remarkable visions.
Right, after an unusual evening, she saw her brothers and landlords holding an infant.
Yes, then a vision of a boy named David going towards the sea, and then an earthquake and feeling like she was outside her body.
And the infant. Goddard connects that to the key to the kingdom.
Like Simeon in the temple holding the baby Jesus. He says, seeing that infant signifies gaining a completely different understanding of creative power. Not external, but internal.
The power within you.
That's the realization. And Goddard gets excited talking about people awakening to this.
He quotes Luke 9.27 too, doesn't he? Some here who will not taste of death until they have seen the kingdom of God.
Yes, underlining that the kingdom isn't a place you go to after death. It's a state of consciousness, a state of being, realizing your oneness with your creative power right here, right now.
So things like worldly wealth, they become secondary.
Completely secondary in this view. You can't take possessions with you. Goddard suggests that after physical death, you continue, likely in a youthful form, in a world much like this one.
And potentially still making those blind unions with strange gods, still seeking fulfillment outside yourself.
Exactly. Still searching without recognizing your true husband, your own inner creative power, your maker.
Because the underlying search, even when we chase these external states, it's always for God.
That's what Goddard asserts. Even when we're fascinated by a strange state personified by man, say, desiring the power or fame, someone else seems to have the real search is for the divine within.
And the person we might fixate on in a dream or daydream.
They're just the mask God is wearing for us in that moment, based on the state we're drawn to. They themselves are unaware.
He links this to Sarah in the Bible, doesn't he? The promise of a child in old age.
Yes, he says there's a Sarah in everyone, a part of us that feels barren, limited, past the point of creating what we desire.
But the promise remains. Despite those feelings, you will bring forth your son, your manifestation.
And he brings in Blake there. Whom God has afflicted for secret ends, he comforts and heals and calls them friend, implying that even our struggles serve a purpose in this awakening.
So while we're chasing these false gods, these limiting beliefs or external desires, there will be pain.
Yes, the messianic pains of childbearing, as he calls it. The struggle and suffering that comes from trying to bring forth creations from a false premise.
But eventually the idea is we return.
We return to the one husband. We fall in love with the promise itself, with our own creative power. Maybe we encounter someone or some teaching like Goddard's that embodies that story of salvation for us.
And again, just to be clear, if someone feels a connection to Neville himself through dreams or imagination.
Neville the person is totally innocent. God, your husband, is simply using Neville's form, his mask, because you associate him with that state of understanding.
Change your focus, your core belief, and God would wear a different mask.
Exactly. The mask changes based on the state you're currently wedding yourself to in consciousness.
This also relates back to the indestructibility of ideas. He uses communism and democracy as examples.
Right. You can remove the leaders, the proponents, but the ideas themselves, communism is a concept, democracy is a concept, they don't just vanish. They continue to exist as potential states.
And he applies this personally, too, like dishonesty in officials.
He'd say that someone having union with the idea of personal gain through dishonest means. They've wedded themselves to that state, and suffering eventually follows.
So the imperative is always self-examination. What ideas am I entertaining? What states am I giving my energy to?
Are my thoughts aligned with what I truly want to create? Or am I inadvertently calling forth false gods and multiplying my own pain? Because the deep desire always is for the true husband.
And the ultimate discovery, according to Goddard, is that
You realize you were the actor all along. You and God, your creative power, are one.
he quotes Blake again here, doesn't he? Joy and woe have woven fine a garment for my soul divine.
And from the marriage of heaven and hell, God only acts and is in existing beings or men.
Meaning God isn't separate. God is active in us.
God is a thought in action. A sole actor, both in our waking world and in our dreams, constantly playing the part of whatever state we are attached to.
And this continues until
Until the child is born, until the desired state is fully realized, manifested. Then that specific journey, that creative act, is complete.
He uses the analogy from John 16:21 about childbirth pain.
Yes, the woman in labor. The anguish seems unbearable while it's happening. The process of bringing forth an idea, wrestling with doubts and challenges.
But once the child is delivered, once the manifestation appears,
The anguish is forgotten. There's just the joy of having brought this new reality, this human, into the world.
but life keeps presenting new children, right? New challenges, new desires, new obligations.
Exactly. And so the potential for that pain, that struggle, persists until we truly understand the nature of our husband, our own inner power,
So the final revelation, the big one,
is that God actually became you, your very self, so that you eventually could awaken to being God the Father.
the Father, regardless of earthly gender.
Irrelevant in this context. The sign of this awakening, Goddard says, is the mystical experience of seeing God's son, David, and knowing him as your own son. That confirms your identity as the Father, the source.
And that realization is what finally stops the cycle.
It leads you to cease chasing false gods. You understand your true identity and power, and you begin to consciously obey your true husband, your own creative will, fulfilling the divine formula of salvation by consciously creating your reality.
Wow. Okay, so to try and wrap this up, the core idea we've explored today, from Goddard's perspective,
Is that your imagination is the womb. Your desires, the things you truly fall in love with mentally and emotionally, are conceived by God, your true husband, your own creative power.
and the world outside simply reflects back to you which states of consciousness you've successfully married within yourself.
That's the essence of it. A radical shift from seeing ourselves as subject to external forces to recognizing ourselves as the creative center.
So a final thought, perhaps, for everyone listening to ponder.
Maybe ask yourself, what children, what ideas or states are you currently nurturing in your imagination right now?
And are they the kinds of creations that align with your deepest self, your true husband? Or might they be leading towards more sorrow, more struggle?
It's about observing your thoughts, your feelings, your assumptions with this new awareness. It's quite a perspective shift.
It really is, and obviously this is just scratching the surface of Goddard's teachings on this.
Oh, absolutely. This lecture, Your Husband, is rich, but it's just one piece. There's so much more to explore in his work for anyone wanting to go deeper into these principles.